Good afternoon. My name is Alice Lee, and I'm a volunteer serving on the Chinese Advisory Committee for the clerk's office. But there's been some changes there, some good changes. And today we wanted to introduce our Chinese American community to Ms. Isabel Longoria. And she's been appointed as Harris County's first elections administrator. So congratulations to you, Isabel.
Thank you. I'm extremely excited to be here with you all and to be the first elections administrator for Harris County.
Thank you. And of course, we are joined by Ms. Joanne Ray. She is not a stranger to our community. She is the voter outreach coordinator from the elections administrator's office at Harris County, one of the largest counties in the state, of course. So today we're just going to have a sort of a casual conversation so that our community will get to learn a little bit more about Isabel. And I have pulled up her biography, and I guess you have called yourself a policy wonk or a policy nerd. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I am a big nerd, not just for policy, for gardening, for all sorts of things. I have an insatiable curiosity that is paired with the passion of civic service that my family gave me. And so here I am, a policy nerd and wonk.
Wonderful. We love to hear that. I think Joanne probably is a gardener herself, but not me. I have a brown thumb. So. But anyway, a little bit more about Isabel's background. She has served on the City of Houston's Planning Commission, was also appointed to creating sustainable growth and development across the City of Houston through that commission. She was also chosen as the new Leaders Council in 2016 and elected as a member of the organization's board of directors in 2018. Isabel has also served on the boards of the League of Women's Voters, the Mayor's LGBTQ Advisory Board, as well as the Mayor's Housing Transition Team. She currently serves as a co-coordinator of the University of Texas Lyndon Baines Johnson Graduate School Alumni Houston Chapter and class coordinator of the St. Agnes Association. More recently, in 2018, she was awarded the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce's Female Executive of the Year, which made her the youngest and the first LGBTQ award recipient. So congratulations on that, Isabel.
Thank you.
And I think you are still involved with the American Association of Retired Persons, AARP. You did work with the Office of State Senator Sylvia Garcia, as well as State Representative Jessica Farrar. And you yourself have also run for office for City Council.
Yes.
So now you can talk about the election process from the other side too, right? as a candidate and now as a person counting the votes.
Yeah, and I'd love to get into that later of
yes,
why
we would
one
love
of the
to
things
hear
that
that.
drew me to this position was that experience.
Yes, and then so you have a bachelor's degree in sociology from Trinity University, as well as a master's degree in public affairs from the University of Texas LBJ School. And so we would like to talk to you more about your vegetable garden later on. But so aside from the biography, please tell us a little bit more about yourself. So that's not on the paper.
It's not on the paper. What's not on the paper is honestly much more important to me. My family, or both my parents are immigrants. So my mother's from France and my dad is from Mexico. And what I don't often get to share is, though I don't come, from this huge legacy of American politics, we're not Kennedys. Both in France and Mexico, my family was deeply involved in their communities. So my grandmother was the first female principal in her part of France, right where D-Day used to be. And then she was on the city council herself. It was a small village of about 2,000 people, Fort Mardick. And the proudest moment for her and my grandfather every year was being Mr. and Mrs. Santa Claus for the community. And they would get a real donkey and they would put gifts on the donkey and they would go through the neighborhoods giving gifts to children. And on my Mexican side, same thing. My uncle ran for mayor in Nuevo Laredo. My grandfather was a speaker of the House in northern Mexico in Tamaulipas. And so, one thing that always sticks with me is just that, the story of, I'm born and bred here in Texas, but there's an entire history behind me of civic engagement which I shared from the beginning, it's really what fuels me. And then, that insatiable curiosity. I love to garden because I love studying biology and thinking about plants and how they grow and what we can learn from biology and chemistry for then civic engagement. When you think of chemical reactions, there's limiting substances that then fuel chemical reaction. And that's how I think of elections. How can we here in the elections administration take care of all of those limiting substances to then spark the reaction of voting? So this team is doing a couple of things. County clerk's office used to run elections, so everything from voting day, and that was tied to the poll time, honestly, not too long ago. So now the elections administrator modernizes and said, instead of having elections here in voter registration, we bring them into one office. So now this office, elections administration, will do everything from registering you to vote, training deputy voter registrars, then getting you to the polls, picking polls and locations in the community, as well as hours that make sense, and recruiting clerks from the community and engaging everyone to vote. So like I said, we have to spark the reaction of voting, and that's our job now.
That's great. So, I know some of our the viewers may be a little confused because they saw how wonderful a job Chris Hollins has done to help us through the November election, and then of course we have a new county clerk. There are actually a lot of election administrators throughout the state of Texas, right? I mean, you're not the first one, definitely.
Not the first one in Texas, only for Harris County. Most of the other major cities have an elections administrator. And this actually came from Clerk Hollins himself. One thing he championed while he was here as the interim county clerk was a space that brought together voter registration and elections, because so many people already think it's in the same office, but to provide, again, that opportunity to provide more streamlined and better services for voters. So this came directly from him. And you're right, I got to be part of his team that came in June. So I like to think I'm one of the women behind the man who made these wonderful things happen. And so it's just a continuation of that legacy. Clerk Hollins was not fired. He wasn't kicked out. He was only here for 6 months as a bridge between the county clerk who left and then also being a bridge in the creation of this elections administration office. So he often calls me and texts me and says, don't forget about this. We need to do this. I want to help you do this. So again, this is not about one person kicking the other out or getting rid. It's about providing a new service to Harris County and continuing what we did in November, which worked.
Yes, and I think you probably have a lot of data that shows the exponential growth and turnout in Harris County for the voters. Were you surprised at the turnout?
No, I trusted our team, right? We knew that it was a big presidential election. That's always big. But we knew from the beginning something felt different. Back in July for the special election, we did test drive-through voting. We did test the expanded hours. We did test new ways of social media, and Joanne was even out there more and more. This was not news to us. We tested things in July in preparation for having such a big November. And so for us, it was just making it happen. It's almost like running a machine. But I do, Joanne, I would love for you to add, just especially in the Chinese American community, how much more folks were brought out through our voting and some of the innovations we did.
I think I will say that in Chinese then.
Oh, please.
OK， 基本上呢，我们如果跟2016年，因为我们是要跟总统大选来比较的话，要跟4年大选来做比较。那我们通常以前的总统大选，我们的华裔的选民从来没有超过50% 的投票率。那今年呢，我们光是在提前投票期间，已经超过了60%的选民出来投票。所以这对我们来说是一个非常开心的一件事情，而且我们的选民的注册的选民呢，也是比较2016年的话，已经有 double 了。那我们非常开心看到我们的选民出来参与投票。那重点是我们如何保持这个华人的热情。把它当作是一个好像是每年都应该做的事情，每一次投票都会出来参与。那这个就是我们接下来要接受的挑战。但是同时，我们是希望我们的华裔选民能够继 继续的出来投票，因为唯有你出来投票，我们的声音才会被听到，我们才会被重视，那我们才会能够制造更多的工作机会。
Thank you very much, Joanne. So, Isabel, will the public notice any difference now that you are the election administrator? There's actually no difference, visible difference to the voter, right?
Should not be, at least not right now. We're in a transition right now, so we're hosting the December elections, and like I said, nothing changes. Joanne is still leading our Chinese American outreach and more. I hope she doesn't leave me, and we won't see any differences in that. We expect to provide the same level of services, even though the December runoff is very small. It's just City of Houston Council District B, some city council races in Humble, LaPorte, and Nassau Bay, and I believe a mayoral race in one of those as well. Well, it's small. It's only 120,000 voters impacted versus the almost 5 million for Harris County. But for us, it doesn't matter. Even if it was just one voter or 100 million, we want to provide the same level of service and innovation because every election matters. And that is the mission of our organization. Every vote counts and every election matters. So you shouldn't see too much. But I really am excited for what's coming up in the spring. You'll be seeing a revamped website where we combine the elections and voter registration functions. You'll be seeing more active voter registration outreach so that we get more people registered for future elections. And you'll be seeing the incredible ideas that I hope you and the rest of the community bring to us, not only as part of our citizen advisory committees or community advisory committees, but also we want to hear from everyone. We'll be having structured meetings in the future. With COVID, it makes it all weird, but get on social media, get on Facebook, on Twitter, and tell me today, right now, what do you want to see done that I can support not only the Chinese American community, but everyone involved? I think often we say, well, you've got Joanne, that's enough. Joanne can speak to you, that's enough. That's not enough for me. We have to make sure we have locations in communities. We have to make sure that we have election workers that speak the languages of the voters, even if they're not the required by law ones, right? We have to have people who authentically can help us bring more Chinese Americans in to vote and not just saying, well, it's enough to have Joanne and, that's it.
Right. So I'm glad you mentioned all these exciting things coming in March. Is that also when you'll be unveiling a new election machine?
We hope.
Okay. Right.
I am bound by law. I can't say too much about the machines that we are looking at. And honestly, I want folks to know it's not meant to be deceptive. On the contrary, it's meant to make sure that no one is bribed because of knowing that information. If we were releasing the vendor or the contract, people could then put pressure right on those options. And so that ethics is incredibly important to me. So we can't share the details, but we will have new voting machines. We're hopeful to have them for May. And along with that will be a big process to get the community comfortable with the new machines, show you the new methods of voting, and every single election, not just saying, okay, new machines were good, is saying, what can we do better next time? Even if we have new machines, how can we improve and make it easier to use the machines? But I will say, no matter what, they will be easier. They will be touchscreen, no matter what we're getting. I'm not giving out anything with that. But it will create more accessibility and honestly bring us into the 21st century of voting.
Wonderful. So, of course, with the presidential election, our public has learned so much regarding, the election process and the certification process. So has the state of Texas already certified the votes?
I believe, yes, they're just about to certify the state, but it's all done kind of in steps. So at Harris County, we certified or canvassed our final votes a couple of weeks ago so that it could get shot up to the state level. But effectively, it's done. What's happening now is just the paperwork where we do our final audits of the election, make sure, again, and we do this triple, quadruple check. There's no fraud in the election, right? There's nothing that happened to damage the integrity of the elections. And then we have to store all of those documents securely for the future so that if anyone ever wants to audit us, in the community or otherwise, we have those documents so people can hold us accountable. So right now it's the paperwork, but we've moved on. We're in the December elections. We're already looking ahead to May. It's pretty much wrapped up for November.
Yes, and I just kind of wanted to share just a brief experience I had probably a couple decades ago, there was a very tight city council race, and I was invited as one of the members of the community to participate in the recounting of the votes. And actually in that city council race, the victor only won by 33 votes. So like you said, Isabel, every vote does count.
Every vote counts. And if you won't mind, you mentioned I did run for city council last year, and my race ended up coming to 16 votes. So I know how much it matters to get close. And what I really learned from that experience is, one, every vote matters. That's why it's important to vote. But to your, I think, experience as well, so much goes into certifying an election, of recounting when it gets that close, of making sure not only the votes on the machines, but the mail ballots were counted accurately. And that's what my team is searching for, right, and meeting, is the excellence of providing that tedious accuracy. Because we know we've had some that even came down to 5 votes or fewer. And so it matters to get those details right. And so it's exciting now to be in a position and say, oh, wow, I remember in my race, provisional ballots. What can we do now to call people and make sure they know about their provisional ballots in the process? This is an exciting thing we did this year that will continue. In the past, if you had an issue with your voter registration and you got a statement of residence form, so a yellow paper that comes with your mail ballot, sometimes people wouldn't turn it in, sometimes they forget. And this year, the Early Vote Ballot Board and we in conjunction with them made calls to people. And then we visited their homes to remind them that they needed to turn in that yellow piece of paper for their vote to count. That's the kind of level of service we want. We don't want you to get a letter later that says, 10 days ago, you forgot to do this, and now your vote doesn't count. We want to be out there. We want to be proactive. We want to be knocking on your door to make sure that your vote is counted. And so what I will add with that in one of the innovations is when we're going into communities, for example, where perhaps someone requested a mail ballot in Chinese, they were actually sending someone who can speak that language, so that when you're knocking on the door, you don't get Isabel, who only speaks English. You get someone who can explain sometimes the complexities of that process.
That's fabulous. And I know your folks like Joanne and Yuha from the Vietnamese team. I mean, everyone worked so hard. And I think you're going to see the fruits of your labor, right? I believe that you now have a new base of voters, perhaps even younger voters, first-time voters. I mean, I think this is kind of, you're in your dream job, aren't you?
Absolutely. And like you said, to the work that the team has already been doing. And I can't stress that enough. This is, elections administration is a continuation and a modernization of the office, not a repercussion of what's happened in the past. And so it's exciting to build upon the work. And I get to go back, you're right, to Joanne and Yuha and say, what can we do better? One thing that we've already talked about is reaching out to our Korean-speaking community and saying, maybe by law, we don't have to have certain resources, but what can we do to go above and beyond? And same for my family who speaks French. We don't offer services in French. What can we do to go above and beyond in offering those services? I'm excited, if you can't tell already. And what I really look forward to is really speaking with you, Alice, as not only as part of the CIC, but what else can we do? Truly, we don't have all the ideas on our own. This has to take a community to make happen.
It sure does. I mean, we all need to come together and work together with all communities. And, sharing a little bit of experience myself, my husband has run for city council himself. Mark Lee ran for District C. And then he also ran for city controller back in the 90s. You weren't even born yet, probably.
Fantastic. Just barely. Okay,
all right. And that's a beauty of, being here in America. You could run for office. There's certainly so many ways that you can serve. And I can tell from your background, you noted that you're both sides of your family, from France and from Mexico side, you have servants, you have public servants on both sides. So the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But what actually motivated you to run for city council?
For City Council last year, it was just, again, the excitement of wanting to do more and really, push the limits instead of just saying, well, we have to take things as it is. It's saying, well, how can we get more involved? How can we be, proactive in going out and looking, and especially from my time on the Planning Commission, on looking at development in communities, on affordable housing, on, the sidewalks and infrastructure, all the way to, health and safety concerns and how we can do block walks in the community to engage people instead of just saying, well, I hope they get my newsletter. And so, it was a tough one. It was a close one. But for me, it was not about, any one person. It was about promoting those ideas. And so it's that same excitement that I've carried with me when working with AARP. And we're working at the Texas legislature and now in this job. It's not about, me and any ambition. It's about the excitement of sparking the reaction of civic engagement, be it in housing or be it in voting. And this time I get to do voting. And it's exciting.
That's great. And I know Joanne has been working really hard in trying to update, I think, the list of Chinese surnames. Of course, my last name Lee, I could be Anglo, I could be African-American, I could, it could be Asian. So you can't really distinguish, what my ethnicity would be. But there are certainly a lot more surnames that Joanne is helping us identify to kind of continue to reach out to those voters. And also, there are people with Chinese first names. I mean, they may be adopted or they may be married. So just going on the last name alone may not be sufficient. So I was just curious, Joanne, I know you're working really hard in trying to update that surname list. What type of help do you need in trying to update that list?
To tell you the truth, I'm still thinking about it. How can we make it as accurate as possible? I think it is a good resource is kind of compared with a census database. So I think we're talking about a lot of data comparison. And so I think using the GIS, I think Isabel, we talked a little bit about it before. We see the potential of using GIS can help our workflow more efficiently. So I think that's something we can look into. Because for database itself, there's so many ways of you can query the data. You can do the different level. So the first level, then go to the more depth. So to get your result more accurate. So that's something I think we're looking into it. And, so I'm so glad Isabel, be our leader and taking us to the right direction. So we're very looking forward to work with her.
Thank you, Joanne. And I do want to add, another one of the small details that's been on my mind is when we send out mail ballot applications, we don't currently include a box where you can check off the language you want to add. So at the bottom, you're supposed to read in small print that says, well, if you would like one in Vietnamese or Chinese, call here. I don't think that's fair. And I think that's something that might be a small detail, but we need to make that bigger and put it in the language and put it in a visible spot so you can just check the box instead of having to go through the extra step to request something like that. Like I said, those are the details. Might not be a big flashy project like drive-through voting. Those are the details that matter. Even the design of a mail ballot application to be more inclusive to a community that I want to start looking at.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially for the senior person, they already have an eyesight problem, see the little captions, not to mention to have to read through it. And so that's going to be very difficult for them. So it will make it so much approachable if we make the captions bigger print.
Yeah.
And certainly Joanne probably needs a little bit more help. So hopefully there'll be more Chinese bilingual workers that can be brought in to help her in that respect. But I was curious, Isabel, I know that I've learned actually, through all the talking heads and everything through the presidential election process, that some states, they automatically mail out the mail-in ballot application. But that, is that a choice by the Secretary of State or the legislature? Why is it determined that some states automatically do that and then we don't do that here in Texas?
It's a great question. It's determined, it was prescribed in state law. And as you probably know, in November, Clerk Collins, we sent out to everyone over the age of 65 an application. And we wanted to do just that. As far as we were concerned, it's just sending mail. We send mail for all sorts of stuff. And so we wanted to send an application to all registered voters in Harris County to let them know their options, especially with COVID and the disabilities section. And unfortunately, a court decided that that was not legal. And so now it's going back to the Texas legislature where they'll be making some laws around it. You know, my position with everything is mail is a tool that we use to reach people with their options. You know, in the same way that we send constituent mail for other things or notices of other things, that's the option we want. But you're right. Unfortunately, for many things, we're restricted at the state level. For example, online voter registration. How great would it be if you could just fill out a form online, say, register me to vote, and that's it? We can't do that, and we're restricted by state law. We've tried to get creative with it, but at some level, you don't want to get too creative or because you don't want to disenfranchise someone and have their vote thrown out. And so you're right. Unfortunately, we really, really would encourage folks to, you know, be active, engage with your elected officials, and engage in whatever advocacy you think is appropriate for allowing us to be innovative and proactive here at the Elections Administration Office.
Well, I certainly would like to applaud your office and, of course, your predecessor. Well, not your exact predecessor, but Chris Hollins, because you're the first ones. You don't have a predecessor. You'll have successors later on. But, you know, for Chris Hollins and everybody there at the county and the care that was put into the drive-through process, the all the ways that you protected the voters during COVID, I think that's really commendable for those efforts.
Thank you. I was in charge of coordinating our COVID response, and I am very proud to say this is not something we often get to share. There was no major outbreak of COVID at any voting location. The same precautions we take in November, we are taking again in December. And the scariest thing always for us, even back in July, was, are we going to be the center of something? For people should never have to, but to then choose between the right to vote and the right to health. And so it's almost emotional for me to say that no major instance. We had some people, one, maybe two clerks, and they immediately would go home. They would immediately quarantine. We tested all the other staff at the location, and every single instance, there was no communal spread of COVID, and we are forever grateful for that. And we hope to have the same standard and luck going into the December elections.
So I'm just curious. I think probably there's some gathering of election information. I don't want to say that, but maybe the best practices. I know that, unfortunately, Fort Bend County is not required to have multilingual ballots, but there are certainly, best practices that probably, you guys can look at. And now that you are an election administrator, you are now part of the Texas Association of Elections Administrators, right? So that is an actual organization, and I'm sure you'll be getting a lot of best practices and other things from that organization.
I'm actually meeting with them this afternoon for the first time. So they've pulled together a special introductory meeting for me. And you're right. And one thing that I want to be committed to is working with my peers in the region. I think that a wonderful next step would be, if Harris County is voting until 7 p.m., how can we find the resources to help Fort Bend, Brazoria, Montgomery to reach the same? And, sometimes it is choices, but quite often those counties don't have the same funds, don't have the same human resources to do that. How can we help them, right? Instead of just taking all the acclaim and saying, oh, well, come to Harris County, we've got plenty of resources. It's how can we help the region do that? You're absolutely right. And you're right. And I feel for those things like languages on the ballot, and even being allowed to have interpreters for various languages at locations, we're restricted sometimes by state and federal law. And so we're going to be looking very closely to our peers at the Texas Elections Administration Association to say, what can we do? And it's not partisan. What can we do to make voting more accessible, easier, and better for people? That's it. That's my goal, point blank.
Right. And I know there was a special effort for this past election to get more of our youth to get involved doing the IT and stuff. Was that successful?
Oh, yes. Oh, that's one of the best projects. Is that we used to we've had high school books for a long time, and we used to say, okay, well, you're going to sit in the corner, and all you do is click on the wait times app if there's a line or not. And this time, we dedicated more resources to train them, to have them tackle more complex IT issues. And here's one of kind of the big brain ideas. I want to take those high school clerks and train them to be voter deputy registrars so that they can then go back to the high schools. And you have to be 18 to be a legal voter registrar, right? So either you're 18 and you can register your peers, or what if we make them civic ambassadors? So now they're going at high schools, talking about their experience where they get paid, so you still get some, extra money, and they're registering people and they're getting their peers excited, not just in high school, but also in college. And I think that's one thing we forget. If you start folks early on being part of the process before they vote, they will remember that forever. And so it's too often, I think sometimes we focus and just say high school. What are they doing with that information? And how, for me, my grandmother only speaks Spanish. I had to help her sign up for her mail ballot, and not just because I was in this job. And so we know too that grandchildren, right, and children in immigrant communities where there's different languages, you become the translator for your family. So the more we can help kids, right, be the ambassadors, not just for their schools, but for their families, that will also inspire the reaction of voters.
Yes, I mean, that's great. I mean, anytime you can get young people involved, that's very commendable. Yeah. So, Joanne, I want to go back to you because maybe some of our viewers aren't really sure what your current role is. Can you tell us, and you can speak in Chinese so people know what your role continues to be?
Yeah, I think basically my role is like a bridge between the county and the Chinese voters. 所以基本上我是扮演一个桥梁的一个角色，就是我把我们 county 的一些投票的一些选举的一些讯息，然后把它以中文，然后非常亲切，然后能够你们大家能够很容易的能够跟我联络的方式来联络我。那我包括我的电话号码，你们随时可以打电话给我。还有我也会到你们的任何的聚会场合来给你们做一些解说。那包括不同的那个老年活动中心或一些社团、一些节庆的活动你们都我都希望你们能够可以直接跟我联络也可以。当然我也会主动的跟你们联络。那当然也包括了一些媒体帮助我们宣传。那我们也是很也是跟一些社区的团体跟社区的华裔领袖，包括 Alice Lee， 我们做一些大家一起合作才能够把这个事情做得非常好。所以我非常感谢我们的华裔社区的领袖还有媒体，然后跟我们一起合作无间，所以我们今年在11月份的选举我们才会有这么好的成绩。那我们希望能够一直延续下去。当然我们也需要一定要你出来投票，因为只有你出来投票我们才能够向我们的上级长官呈现好的成果。那这样的话我们才会提供更多的华裔的工作机会，还有更多的那个财务方面的支持，我们才可以做更多的广告。所以这些都是息息相关。还有一点可能大家不太没有想到，就是今年我们的选举其实我们做了很多的统计分析，事先有预测说就是说这个投票的结果大概会怎么样。可能但是这一次我们也都知道每一个地方它的选票可能只是1万多票之差。那这1万多票之差的时候呢，因为这些少数民族平常不出来投票的，这1万多票可能就是由我们来决定这个胜负，所以很多人可能不知道。那在地方选举更是明显，因为地方选举的话，那个投票的地区性比较小，人数也比较少。那通常我们知道一般人有这个常态出来投票人，我们可以预测这个投票的人数。但是如果不常出来投票人，包括华裔如果你开始踊跃出来投票的话，你的选票就是能够决胜负的这个关键所在。 所以我们希望大家一定要珍惜你这个投票权，一定要出来投票，因为当候选人他感觉到说感应到原来这个华裔的选票对他很重要的时候，他就会出来支持我们的社区的一些福利 ，OK， 包括道路的修护各个方面的福利，他就会出来给我们做一些承诺。他的政见的时候就会能够帮助我们，所以这个都是互相非常有密切关系的。我们所以希望大家一定要保持这个热度，跟着我一起来，让我们的这个社区的更加蓬勃发展。然后我们能够带动经济，大家都会能够很安心的出去shopping， 不会担心到你的安全。
Well, thank you, Joanne. I know that, as Isabel mentioned, the early voting is in progress right now, and it will end on Tuesday, December the 8th. There's early voting happening every day from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., with the runoff election to be held on Tuesday, December the 12th.
Saturday.
I'm sorry,
That's
Saturday.
the big difference. Saturday.
Sorry,
Yes,
that's right.
I didn't want
Sorry,
anyone showing up on Tuesday.
Yes, I'm sorry. The early voting ends Tuesday, December 8th, with Saturday, December 12th is the runoff. I'm sorry. And then the elections office phone number is 713-755-6965. And the website is www.harrisvotes.com. I know, Isabel, that your parents and your family are very proud of you, and you are an inspiration to so many people. So I'd like to give you the remainder of the floor to do some wrap-up closing remarks. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. So I'll turn it to you.
I hope this is only the first of many, many times. Know that when we're out of COVID, I look forward to coming to community events as well, and not just speaking, but learning. And I think that's the most important. And I'm so proud to have Joanne. Joanne, is not just a translator, and I hope she covered that. She is an ambassador and an advocate for what needs to happen for the Chinese American community in our office, as well as making sure that we communicate back. So I can't be more proud of her as a resource and as a bridge, like she said, in between everything we do. But please come vote, come vote, come vote. That's all we need of you. Come vote, register your friends to vote, and know that I am here to be of service to absolutely every single one of you and your viewers.
Okay, Joanne, would you like to make some closing remarks? You're the one who brought us together.
I think we're all very excited for our new election administrator, Isabel, and I'm sure she will take us to build a very strong team and build out our community. So I'm very proud of her, and also very proud to be part of the team. Thank you.
And Isabel, when it's safe again for us to come together to eat, I'm going to treat you to have lunch in Chinatown with us.
Yes. I went to school in St. Agnes, so I have very fond memories and love to go food exploring. So thank you, Alice. I look forward to it.
Very good. Well, thank you so much. And we now conclude our visit here with our first elections administrator for Harris County, Ms. Isabel Longoria, and of course, our voter outreach coordinator, Joanne Ray. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.